Ever notice how stupidity often sounds confident while wisdom stays quiet? We live in a world where volume is mistaken for intelligence and arrogance hides behind false certainty. People argue not to understand, but to win. They talk louder, not wiser. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If someone is mistaken, instruct them kindly if you can. If not, bear with them." The Stoics understood a simple truth. You can't reason with arrogance pretending to be knowledge. You can only protect your peace, your clarity, and your time. In this video, we'll uncover 8 unmistakable signs of a truly foolish person, how to recognize them, how to avoid becoming like them, and how to handle foolishness with calm mastery. Because fighting fools drains your energy, but understanding them sharpens your wisdom. Stay to the end. The last sign might reveal something about you. 1. They speak more than they think. There's a reason the Stoics valued silence as much as courage. A fool exposes himself not through what he knows, but through what he can't stop saying. You've met this person, the one who fills every pause with noise, who mistakes constant talking for confidence. They don't ask questions, they don't reflect. They speak only to prove they exist. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, once said, "Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue." Words are powerful tools, but in undisciplined hands, they become weapons, not just against others, but eventually against the speaker themselves. A person who talks more than they think isn't just careless with speech. They are careless with perception. They miss the meaning between the lines. They confuse noise with knowledge, speed with insight, and volume with intelligence. The fool talks to be heard. The wise talk to understand. And the Stoic, he speaks only when silence no longer serves him. To the Stoics, silence isn't emptiness, it's mastery. It's the space between impulse and control where truth gathers its weight before being spoken. That pause, that inner stillness, is where wisdom lives. Notice how quickly people betray themselves when they speak too fast. They reveal insecurity behind arrogance, fear behind certainty, and ignorance behind confidence. They refuse to listen, because listening would mean admitting they don't already know. They fill the air with noise to avoid facing the discomfort of not being the smartest person in the room. But wisdom begins exactly there, in humility, in the ability to say, "Maybe I don't know yet." The fool avoids silence because silence would force him to meet himself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." The Stoics treated words as moral acts, not casual noise. Every word reflects your discipline, your clarity, your self-control. That is why the wise often speak less. They are busy observing, refining, choosing. When a Stoic finally speaks, his words carry weight because they were forged in restraint. Look at our world today. Everyone has a platform, but few have purpose. People talk to be seen, not to contribute. They argue not to learn, but to dominate. Outrage becomes entertainment, and loudness becomes currency. But the Stoic doesn't compete in that arena. He values presence over performance. When others rush to speak, the Stoic waits. When they demand reaction, he breathes. Silence unsettles the insecure because silence can't be argued with. Picture 2 people in a heated argument. One shouts, gestures wildly, desperate to be right. The other listens, speaks once, and ends it. Which one appears stronger? Which one has the real control? That is the difference between noise and power. Control is quiet. Strength doesn't shout. A disciplined tongue cuts deeper than any insult. The Stoic has no need to win arguments. He wins himself. In a world begging for reactions, restraint becomes rebellion. Don't let noise fool you into thinking it means wisdom. Don't confuse confidence with clarity or speech with strength. Speak only when your words add value, not volume. Wisdom doesn't rush, it resonates, and deliberate silence speaks louder than any speech ever could. Silence is not weakness, it's control. 2. They get offended by the truth. A fool isn't threatened by lies, he's threatened by truth, because truth exposes him. Honesty doesn't wound the body, it wounds the ego. Tell a fool something real, and you'll see how fast his pride rises to defend itself. He'll attack your tone, your intention, your right to speak. Anything to avoid the mirror you just held up. To admit fault takes strength, and strength is something a fool refuses to build. Marcus Aurelius said, "If someone corrects you, accept it as a gift." The wise see truth as a mirror that helps them grow. The foolish see it as an insult. They don't want clarity, they want comfort. They prefer flattery over freedom. They surround themselves with echoes, people who never challenge them, only reassure them. Their identity becomes a house of cards built on fragile validation. One gust of truth, and everything falls. You see this often. Someone gives honest feedback, not to hurt, but to help, and the fool immediately becomes defensive. "You're being negative. Who are you to judge me?" They twist honesty until it sounds like an attack because their pride cannot tolerate reality. But the Stoic doesn't force truth on those who reject it. He lets truth stand on its own because truth doesn't need defenders. It only needs time. Seneca wrote, "No man heals by denying his wound. The fool hides pain with pride. The wise confront it and grow stronger. So when someone gets angry at truth, remember, they're not fighting you. They're fighting reality. Let them rage. Let them twist. Don't argue. You have nothing to prove. Stay calm. Stay centered. Let their reaction reveal who they are. The wise don't trade peace for the illusion of winning. They don't chase being right. They aim to be free. Truth in a world that worships comfort becomes an act of rebellion. To speak honestly without cruelty, to listen without defensiveness, to face correction without shame. That is Stoic discipline. You can't control whether someone accepts truth, but you can control your composure when they reject it. And that is real power, calm in chaos, clarity in the storm. Truth wounds the ego, not the wise. 3. They blame everyone but themselves. Nothing keeps a person weak longer than the habit of blaming others. A foolish person always has an excuse, always a villain, always someone else to point at. It's never their fault. It's their parents, their boss, the government, the timing, the system. They believe life is conspiring against them, when the real trap is their refusal to take responsibility. The Stoics understood this deeply. They taught that the moment you begin blaming, you surrender your power. Because the person you blame becomes the one who controls your life. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters." That is the essence of Stoicism, radical ownership. It doesn't mean every misfortune is your fault. It means your response is your domain. The foolish waste their life wishing the world were fair. The Stoic accepts reality and masters his choices within it. Responsibility is freedom, because it's the one thing that belongs fully to you. You see this everywhere. Someone fails, and immediately blames timing, support, luck, circumstances. Underneath those excuses is fear. Fear of facing their own lack of discipline. It's easier to hate the world than to improve yourself. And that's why fools stay stuck for years. They build their own prison and decorate it with reasons. The Stoic never wastes breath on blame. He examines his actions like a scientist studies a specimen, without shame, without denial, only curiosity. What did I do? What can I learn? What should I change? That mindset turns failure into fuel. Every mistake becomes raw material for mastery. Seneca said, "Fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling." The fool is dragged through life, kicking, blaming, resisting reality. The Stoic walks willingly, even through hardship, because he knows one truth. What you accept, you can control. What you resist controls you. So when you meet someone who always blames others, stay calm. Don't argue. Don't try to rescue them from their own story. They don't want solutions. They want sympathy. You can't wake someone who's pretending to sleep. Let them talk. Let them blame. Let them project. Then walk away lighter, because their storm is not your responsibility. The Stoic knows peace begins where blame ends. And if you ever find yourself slipping into that same trap, pause. Don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Ask instead, "What can I do with this?" That one question turns a setback into strength. The world won't always be fair. People will lie, betray, disappoint. But that belongs to them, not to you. Your domain is how you rise, how you endure, how you stay composed when chaos knocks. Blame is easy. Growth is hard. One keeps you innocent. The other makes you powerful. Choose power. Take responsibility, not because you're guilty, but because you're capable. The fool finds excuses. The Stoic finds actions. And that difference draws the line between suffering and strength. Blame weakens. Responsibility rebuilds. 4. They refuse to listen or learn. Nothing exposes ignorance faster than arrogance. The fool thinks he already knows everything worth knowing. He listens only to reply, never to understand. Every conversation becomes a competition. Every correction becomes an insult. He would rather defend his mistakes than grow beyond them. He confuses pride with power, when pride is actually the lock that keeps wisdom out. Seneca said, "While we teach, we learn." The Stoics knew the wisest minds are the most open minds. True intelligence isn't rigid. It bends, absorbs, adjusts. But the fool builds walls of certainty. He hears advice and calls it criticism. He hears truth and calls it disrespect. You cannot reach him, not because he lacks intelligence, but because he lacks humility. And humility is the soil where wisdom grows. Without it, truth slides off the mind like rain on stone. The fool stays dry, untouched, unchanged, while the wise soak up every drop. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone proves me wrong, I'll gladly change, for I seek truth, not pride." That is the Stoic way, the courage to be corrected. Wisdom doesn't come from being right. It comes from being willing to adjust when you're wrong. The fool clings to his opinions as if they're identity. The Stoic holds beliefs loosely, knowing truth is discovered, not declared. Look at modern arrogance. People confuse scrolling with knowledge, opinions with experience, attention with insight. They think reading headlines makes them experts. They think disagreement makes you an enemy. But the Stoic doesn't argue to win. He listens to understand. He knows silence is where understanding grows, and questions are the path to it. There is tremendous power in saying, I don't know. Those three words unlock everything real. They silence the ego and invite wisdom in. The fool fears them. He thinks they make him small. The wise embrace them because that's how greatness begins. Every master was once a beginner who refused to pretend certainty. So when you meet someone who refuses to listen or learn, don't try to break their wall. It's built from pride, not logic. Speak calmly. Offer truth once. Then step back and let life teach them what their ego refuses to hear. People who won't listen eventually learn through consequence, and consequence is a teacher that never fails. The Stoic stays humble because he knows the mind, like a blade, dulls without sharpening. He sharpens it daily, through questions, observation, silence. He doesn't fear being wrong, he fears being unchanged. The fool rejects correction and remains the same. The wise seek correction and evolve. And the Stoic? He listens more than he speaks, learns more than he argues, and grows every time he's proven wrong. The foolish reject correction. The wise crave it. 5. They chase attention, not improvement. He performs his life like a show, always waiting for the next dose of approval. But the Stoics knew that chasing attention is the fastest way to lose yourself. Because the more desperately you need to be seen, the less clearly you can see. Marcus Aurelius warned that the approval of others gives you nothing. He ruled an empire and still understood that reputation is only a fragile shadow. It moves with the light, not with the truth. A Stoic doesn't live to be admired. He lives to stay aligned with his values. He finds strength in doing the right thing, even when nobody is watching. The fool, however, only acts when an audience is present. Remove the eyes of others, and his motivation collapses. His entire life depends on being witnessed. Attention is addictive because it resembles love, but love strengthens, attention drains. The fool confuses the two and keeps returning for another hit, another post, another compliment, another empty pat on the back. He'll even shapeshift to please the crowd, perform virtue for praise, or lie to maintain admiration. And each performance erodes his spirit a little more. The Stoic sees through the illusion. He knows external praise is like smoke. It rises fast and disappears just as quickly. You can't build peace on smoke. Look at the modern world. Every opinion becomes a performance. Every achievement becomes an announcement. People post progress instead of making it. They chase the image of wisdom instead of the practice of it. They want to be followed, not improved. But Stoicism teaches this: you either build character quietly or you destroy it loudly. The work that actually transforms you happens where no one is clapping. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." The fool suffers from the imagination of fame. He dreams of being admired, envied, adored, but it's all fantasy. Real growth doesn't need witnesses. It needs discipline, consistency, and silence. The Stoic wakes each morning and asks, "What can I make better today?" Not, "Who will notice me today?" His reward is progress, not applause. When you no longer crave recognition, you become unstoppable, because no one can manipulate a person who doesn't need applause. Criticism no longer shakes you. Approval no longer feeds you. You become anchored in something deeper, your integrity. That sort of strength can't be bought, borrowed, or performed. So stop chasing eyes that will look away tomorrow. Build something real. Do one quiet act of excellence every day that no one sees. Let your work speak on the days you don't. The Stoic doesn't need to prove who he is. He shows it quietly through action. Fools chase applause. The wise chase progress. 6. They repeat mistakes and call it experience. The fool loves to say, "I've been through this before," as if repetition alone equals wisdom. But making the same mistake twice isn't experience. It's stubbornness disguised as growth. A fool doesn't truly learn. He survives. He crashes into the same walls, blames the same people, feels the same pain, and then tells himself he's wiser because of it. But wisdom isn't measured by how much you've suffered. It's measured by how much you've changed because of that suffering. Seneca said, "To err is human, but to persist in error is foolish." Every failure contains a lesson, but the fool refuses to open it. He wraps his mistakes in excuses. "That's just who I am. I guess this is my luck." The Stoic treats mistakes as mirrors. He examines them not to punish himself, but to understand himself. Because every wrong step, when reflected upon, becomes a map toward a better path. Think about how many people repeat the same cycles in relationships, work, or habits, always choosing comfort over clarity, pride over progress. They change partners, jobs, routines, but run into the same problem everywhere they go: themselves. The fool runs in circles, confusing motion for growth. The Stoic walks in a straight line, reflect, adjust, continue. The truth is simple. Life keeps teaching you the same lesson until you finally learn it. Life doesn't punish, it repeats. What feels like bad luck is often unfinished learning. A fool sees every hardship as misfortune. A Stoic sees it as curriculum. The difference is humility, the willingness to say, "I caused this," or "I can change this." That's how pain becomes power. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." Mistakes aren't detours, they are the main road. But the fool turns around at the first discomfort. He refuses to walk through hardship, so he never arrives anywhere new. To him, pain is evidence of failure. To the Stoic, pain is evidence of training. If you're facing the same disappointment again and again, pause. Don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Ask, "What am I still refusing to learn?" That one question can end years of repetition. Because once you extract the lesson, the pattern dies. The fool repeats until life breaks him. The Stoic learns until wisdom remakes him. Today, people glorify resilience. "I've been through so much and I'm still standing." But Stoicism asks, have you been through so much and finally started changing? Survival isn't strength if it leaves you unchanged. The goal isn't just to survive the storm, it's to walk out wiser than you entered. Stop calling repetition experience. Experience without reflection is just endurance. Learn, adapt, refine. Every mistake can either repeat your past or reshape your future. The choice is yours. Mistakes teach, but only when you listen. 7. They confuse confidence with competence. The fool mistakes loudness for strength and certainty for skill. He believes sounding sure is the same thing as being right. The louder he talks, the more convinced he becomes, even when he's completely lost. Confidence by itself can be intoxicating. It makes you feel powerful, even when you're standing on nothing. But the Stoics warned that false confidence is simply ignorance wearing a costume. A person who has never doubted himself has never examined himself. Epictetus said, "A man cannot learn what he thinks he already knows." The fool clings to certainty like armor, but it's really a cage. Every time he says, "I know," he closes the door on growth. He doesn't question, he declares. He doesn't test, he asserts. He isn't searching for truth, he's searching for validation. And that's why fools fall the hardest. Their arrogance has no foundation. The higher their confidence climbs, the lower their competence sinks. You can see this everywhere, at work, in politics, online. People speak with absolute conviction about things they barely understand. They quote headlines as if they were scholars, shout opinions as if they were facts. The modern world rewards confidence far more than competence, but the Stoic never confuses the two. He knows real knowledge makes a person humble, not loud, because the more you genuinely understand, the more aware you become of how much you don't know. The fool fears uncertainty. He thinks admitting, "I'm not sure," makes him weak. The Stoic embraces it because doubt is where wisdom begins. True confidence is quiet, not because it's unsure, but because it has nothing to prove. A skilled craftsman doesn't brag about his tools. He lets the results speak. The wise don't announce their strength. They reveal it through calm, precision, and consistency. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Receive without arrogance and let go without attachment." The Stoic doesn't chase superiority, he chases truth. He would rather be corrected than be comfortable. He would rather learn than win an argument. The fool, however, fuses ego with identity. Challenge his ideas, and he feels personally attacked. He defends ignorance like a warrior guarding a throne made of sand. Confidence without skill is a fragile illusion. It holds until life demands proof, and when it does, the fool is left with excuses. The Stoic prepares for that moment. He practices, questions, builds quietly. His confidence is earned. That's why it lasts. In a noisy world obsessed with appearing certain, humility becomes a rare strength. Be willing to say, "I don't know." Be curious enough to find out. Let competence, not confidence, be what defines you. The Stoic doesn't need to look right. He needs to be right. Confidence without reason is arrogance. 8. They think loud opinions equal strength. The fool believes that shouting his thoughts makes them true. He mistakes aggression for confidence, volume for conviction, and dominance for power. Every disagreement becomes a battle. Every conversation becomes a stage. Yet the louder he speaks, the less anyone truly listens. Because strength that relies on noise isn't strength. It's insecurity dressed up as power. Seneca said, "He who angers you, conquers you." The fool never learns this. He thinks reacting quickly means winning. He thinks raising his voice means he's in control. The Stoics taught the opposite. Self-control is the highest form of power. To stay calm when others lose themselves, that is mastery. Anger burns fast and leaves ashes. Calm endures. We see this everywhere today. Social media, politics, everyday life. People shouting past each other, mistaking outrage for courage. But outrage isn't strength. It's surrender. It's handing your peace to anyone who can provoke you. The fool lives as a puppet to his own emotions, pulled by every offense, every insult, every disagreement. The Stoic cuts the strings. He knows silence unsettles the insecure more than any argument ever could. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." The Stoic doesn't match noise. He raises his standards. When the fool screams, the Stoic breathes. When the fool demands to be heard, the Stoic listens. When the fool wants to win, the Stoic seeks to understand. Real strength doesn't shout. It shows itself in composure, restraint, and clarity. Look at how easily people trade dignity for the illusion of winning. They yell, insult, slam doors, and walk away thinking they proved something, but they only proved their lack of control. The Stoic knows calm isn't weakness, it's strategy. It's staying still long enough for chaos to expose itself. It's power without noise. If you want to test your strength, try staying silent when you're provoked. Try listening when you want to argue. Try letting go when you want to prove a point. Strength lives in the space between reaction and response. The fool reacts. The Stoic decides. In a world that equates loudness with leadership, composure is rebellion. Be the quiet one who thinks deeply, acts wisely, and speaks deliberately. Let others burn out in their noise while you grow in your stillness. Storms make noise, but it's the mountain that outlasts them. Calm is the ultimate flex. The Stoics taught that stupidity isn't about lack of knowledge, it's about lack of control. Every sign of a foolish person comes from the same root: ego without awareness, talking too much, fearing truth, blaming others, refusing to learn, chasing attention, repeating mistakes, confusing confidence with skill, and mistaking noise for power. All symptoms of a mind ruled by pride. But pride cannot live alongside wisdom. The Stoic practices the opposite: to listen more, speak less, learn constantly, act intentionally, and stay calm when others fall apart. You can't change foolish people, but you can choose how you respond. Their noise becomes your training ground. Their chaos becomes the gym for your peace. Don't argue with fools. Outgrow them. Let your calm be louder than their arrogance. Wisdom begins where arrogance ends.